Max Stellar leaned against the cool metal of the starship's cockpit, his gaze lost in the swirling violet clouds of Zor 9's atmosphere. His hands were steady on the controls, but his stomach churned, not from the turbulence, but from the twisted knot of anxiety. He was a diplomat, not a groom. Yet, as the planet loomed closer, his mission was clear. Marry the Zoran princess, reputed to be the ugliest in the galaxy. Of all the diplomatic missions, this has to be the most bizarre, Max muttered under his breath, adjusting his uniform with a resigned tug. The fabric felt stiff, like the forced smile he practiced in the reflective surface of the navigation screen. Fan-freaking-tastic. The ship shuddered as it entered the lower stratosphere, a gentle reminder of the impending reality waiting for him on the surface. As the landing gears deployed with a mechanical clunk, Max straightened up, inhaling deeply. "Showtime," he whispered, stepping towards the airlock. The hatch hissed open, releasing a gust of hot, sulphurous air that welcomed him to Zor 9. He grimaced slightly, schooling his features into a mask of diplomatic calm as he descended the ramp. Awaiting him was a delegation of Zoran, tall, blue-skinned beings with humanesque features, adorned with elaborate jeweled headpieces that glittered under the twin suns. "Welcome, Merling Max," intoned the leader of the delegation, his voice a buzzing melody that vibrated through the air. "I am High Counselor Zix. We are most pleased by your acceptance of this great honor." Max's practiced smile tightened at the edges. "The honor is all mine, High Counselor," he replied, his voice smooth as silk. "I look forward to strengthening the bonds between our worlds." Zix's crest, a luminous ridge of skin atop his head, rippled in what Max hoped was a sign of approval. "Indeed, the wedding ceremony will commence at moonrise. Until then, you may rest and prepare." Moonrise. The word echoed in Max's mind, each syllable a leaden weight. "Wait, moonrise?" he blurted, the facade cracking. "Isn't that a bit rushed?" The Zoran exchanged puzzled glances, and Zix's multifaceted eyes blinked rapidly. "Is this not the customary timeline for Earthling unions?" Forcing a chuckle, Max shook his head. "Right, of course. Just a little pre-wedding jitters. Nothing to worry about." Led through the bustling streets towards the opulent palace that would serve as his quarters, Max's mind raced. This was insane. He barely set foot on the planet, and already they had him heading toward the altar with a woman he had never met. What could she look like? How bad could she be to earn the title of ugliest in the galaxy? He shuddered, imagining tentacles and ice-like eyes. In his lavish quarters, as a Zoran servant presented him with elaborate robes, Max eyed the gaudy garments with distaste. "Thanks, but I think I'll stick with the uniform. It represents Earth and all that." "But it is tradition," the servant insisted, his crest drooping slightly. "To refuse would gravely insult the royal family." Sighing, Max conceded, "Fine. Let's get this over with." As he donned the colorful robes, he barely recognized the man in the mirror. The robes were a riot of clashing colors and jangling baubles, transforming him into a caricature of intergalactic diplomacy. As a distant gong echoed through the palace, Max steeled himself. He was about to marry a complete stranger, an alien no less, all in the name of galactic diplomacy. But as he followed the Zoran procession to the ceremonial chamber, his diplomat's resolve hardened. Whatever awaited him at the altar, he would face it as an Earthling ambassador, come what may. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the opulent architecture of Zor 9's royal palace, Max followed the Zoran procession through a series of ornate corridors. His steps echoed in the vast halls, each step resonant with the weight of the impending ceremony. Despite his initial misgivings, his curiosity about the princess grew with every passing moment. Who was this woman that was to be his wife? What made her the subject of such unfortunate fame? The ceremonial chamber loomed ahead, its massive doors adorned with symbols of Zoran heritage. Tangles of vines and celestial bodies intricately carved into the dark wood. As the doors swung open, a rush of musky, floral-scented air greeted him. Inside, the chamber was alive with the soft murmur of voices and the gentle clatter of ceremonial instruments. Hundreds of Zoran, their blue skin glowing softly under the light of bioluminescent chandeliers, turned their multifaceted eyes towards him. At the far end of the room stood High Counselor Zix, next to a figure shrouded from head to toe in shimmering veils. The figure was slender, the veils flowing like liquid silver, catching the light with every subtle movement. The princess, undoubtedly. His heart beat a nervous tattoo against his ribs as he approached the altar. "Esteemed guests," Zix began, his voice echoing grandly, "we gather tonight under the watch of the 7 moons to witness the union of Princess Zelda of Zor 9 and Max Stellar of Earth. May their joining forge eternal bonds between our worlds." The assembly murmured their assent, a sound like the rustling of leaves. Max's gaze was fixed on the veiled figure before him. He could see her hands, clad in fine mesh gloves, trembling slightly. "Join the club," he thought, managing a half-smile. "Max Stellar," Zix continued, turning to him with a solemn nod. "Do you accept this bond, to bridge the stars between our worlds, to cherish and respect the customs and people of Zor 9 as you would your own?" Max swallowed, his throat dry. "I do," he managed, his voice steadier than he felt. "And do you, Princess Zelda, accept this bond, to uphold the peace and alliance with Earth, to cherish and respect its envoy as your consort?" There was a slight pause, the room holding its collective breath. Then a soft, melodic voice floated from behind the veil. "I do." Zix raised his arms, and the room fell silent. "Then by the power vested in me by the great lava lords of Zor 9, I pronounce you bonded in the eyes of our people and the cosmos. You may now lift the veil." Max's hands trembled as he reached out, his fingers brushing against the silky fabric. He hesitated, his breath caught in his throat. The weight of the moment, the reality of his actions, all of it pressed down on him with an intensity he hadn't anticipated. Slowly, he lifted the veil, revealing the face beneath. His heart stopped for a beat, then restarted with a furious pound. There, looking back at him, were the most stunning violet eyes he had ever seen, set in a face of unearthly beauty. Her skin was a luminescent blue, her features delicate and perfectly symmetrical, framed by a cascade of shimmering silver hair. This was the ugliest princess in the galaxy? "Hi," Max croaked, feeling suddenly like an awkward teenager. The princess, Zelda, stared at him, her eyes widening in surprise, then narrowing suspiciously. You do not recoil?" Max blinked, his mind reeling. "Why would I? You're beautiful." A collective gasp rose from the assembled Zoran. Zelda's cheeks darkened, a deeper shade of blue tinting her perfect skin. Was she blushing? "How dare you!" Zix sputtered, his crest flaring. "Such cruel mockery of our princess!" "No, wait," Max hurried to explain, holding up his hands. "I'm not mocking. I'm serious. Where I come from, she would be considered incredibly beautiful." Confused murmurs swirled around the room. Zelda looked at him, a mix of hope and disbelief in her eyes. "Truly?" she whispered. "You do not find me repulsive?" "Not even a little," Max assured her, his smile warm. He lowered his voice, leaning closer. "Though I've got to say, these robes are pretty hideous." A surprised giggle escaped Zelda's lips before she could stop herself, the sound sending a pleasant shiver down Max's spine. Maybe, just maybe, this arranged marriage wouldn't be so bad after all. The giggle that escaped Zelda's lips seemed to hover in the air, mingling with the muted gasps and whispers of the gathered Zoran. Max's tentative smile grew bolder as he noticed a slight easing in the tension around Zelda's eyes. Despite the initial shock of their meeting and the palpable unease in the room, a spark of something lighter flickered between them. High Counselor Zix, though still visibly disturbed by the exchange, composed himself and continued the ceremony with a hint of reluctance. "If there are no objections," he announced, glancing around the chamber with a stern gaze that dared anyone to disrupt the proceedings further, "we shall proceed with the traditional rituals of Zor 9. One by one, the rituals unfolded. Max and Zelda, standing side by side at the altar, participated in the ancient rites that involved the exchange of symbolic gifts, crystalline tokens that represented the stars, woven fabrics that mimicked the night sky, and delicate chains that signified the unbreakable bonds of union. With each item they exchanged, Max felt a growing sense of commitment, not just to the duties of his role, but to the woman beside him who was now his wife. As the final ritual concluded, a soft melody filled the chamber, its notes ethereal and haunting. The Zoran began a slow, rhythmic dance, encouraging Max and Zelda to join. Hesitant at first, Max took Zelda's hand, finding it surprisingly cool and soft in his. They moved awkwardly, out of sync with the music in each other, drawing amused glances from some of the younger Zoran. Zelda leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "I must confess, I have never danced like this before." Max chuckled softly, his nerves easing. "Neither have I. Where I come from, weddings are loud and the dances are less graceful." Her lips curved into a tentative smile. "Then we shall be clumsy together." As they continued to dance, clumsily but with growing confidence, Max couldn't help but feel the surreal quality of the moment. He was on a distant planet, dancing with an alien princess who was his bride, surrounded by a species he barely knew. Yet, beneath the strangeness and the ceremonial pomp, there was a genuine connection forming, one that was as unexpected as it was welcome. When the music finally slowed and the dance ended, they were led to a grand banquet hall where tables laden with Zoran delicacies awaited them. The food was as alien as the planet itself, consisting of dishes that shimmered with iridescent colors and emitted faint aromatic vapors. Zelda, noticing Max's hesitant gaze at the spread, picked up a small glowing fruit and offered it to him. "Try this. It's sweet, much like the fruits of your world." Taking it, Max bit into the fruit, surprised by the burst of sweet, tangy juice that filled his mouth. "That's actually really good," he admitted, earning another smile from Zelda. Throughout the meal, they talked quietly, sharing small details about their worlds. Max learned about Zelda's education in the arts of governance and diplomacy, her love for Zoran literature, and her apprehensive feelings about being thrust into a role that required her to marry a stranger for the sake of intergalactic peace. Zelda, in turn, was fascinated by Max's descriptions of Earth, its diverse cultures, sprawling cities, and wild natural landscapes. "It sounds beautiful," she said wistfully. "So different from Zor 9's cities and crystal forests." As the banquet drew to a close, the newlyweds were escorted to their new quarters, a suite of rooms that overlooked the capital's glowing spires. The door closed behind them with a soft click, leaving them in a luxurious yet oddly intimidating space. Zelda turned to Max, her expression a mix of nervousness and resolve. "So, Max," she began, her voice steady despite the clear uncertainty in her eyes, "here we are. Married. To be honest, I never imagined my wedding day like this." Max nodded, feeling the weight of their shared predicament. "Neither did I, Zelda, but here we are and—" He paused, searching for the right words. "I think we can make this work. Not just as a duty, but maybe even as something good." Zelda's gaze met his, a flicker of hope shining in her violet eyes. "I would like that," she said softly, "to find something good in this. Together." They smiled, a mutual understanding passing between them, an agreement to face whatever lay ahead, not just as diplomatic partners, but as allies, perhaps even as friends. The first night of their union brought with it a profound stillness, as Max and Zelda stood together by the wide window of their quarters, gazing out at the shimmering cityscape of Zor 9. The city lights flickered like distant stars, casting a soft glow that reflected off their faces, highlighting the mix of apprehension and curiosity in their expressions. Max turned to Zelda, observing the thoughtful look on her face. "You know," he began, breaking the silence, "back on Earth, newlyweds usually spend their wedding night getting to know each other. I guess we're doing just that, but in a more unconventional way." Zelda smiled, her anxiety easing slightly. "Indeed, Earthling traditions sound quite warm and personal. Here, unions are often formed for alliances, less for companionship. It's strange yet comforting to think we might blend both concepts." As they talked, Max realized how easy it was to be around Zelda. Despite the extraordinary circumstances of their marriage, she was relatable, grounded, and possessed a subtle wit that surprised him. Her openness about her own doubts and fears about their situation made him feel less isolated in his own. "I have to admit," Zelda said as she moved to sit on one of the plush chairs in the room, "I was terrified when they told me I was to marry an Earthling. But speaking with you now, I think perhaps we could be fortunate in our match." Max joined her, choosing a seat nearby. "I felt the same. It's not every day you're told you're marrying someone from another planet. But I'm starting to think maybe we can make sense of it together." Their conversation deepened, touching on their hobbies, interests, and surprisingly, their shared love for classical music. Zelda through Zoran instruments and Max with his old guitar back on Earth. As they shared stories of their lives before their abrupt union, a genuine bond began to form. As the hours passed, Zelda's initial reserve faded, revealing more of her true self, a princess not just by title but by nature, compassionate and intelligent, with a strong sense of duty to her people. Max shared his adventures and misadventures as a diplomat, which brought laughter and lightness to their dialogue. Eventually, the topic shifted to their roles on Zor 9. "Tomorrow, we are to appear before the council," Zelda informed him, her tone turning serious. "They want to introduce you formally and discuss the terms of our alliance with Earth. It will be broadcast across the planet." Max nodded, his mind racing at the thought. "I'll need to be well prepared. Any tips on how to impress a room full of Zoran officials?" "Be yourself," Zelda advised, her lips curling into a playful smile. "They're not used to sincerity and charm. It might just throw them off enough to listen." Laughing, Max felt a warmth in his chest, an unexpected comfort with Zelda that he hadn't anticipated feeling so soon. "I'll take that advice to heart." Their conversation continued into the early hours, each revelation about each other weaving a stronger thread between them. When their eyelids began to droop with fatigue, Zelda stood, her movements graceful and queenly even in her casual attire. "Max, I don't know what tomorrow holds for us, but I'm glad you're here with me," she said sincerely, her hand reaching out to touch his arm gently. "Me too, Zelda. We'll face it together," Max responded, covering her hand with his, affirming their newfound partnership. As Zelda retreated to her personal chamber within their shared quarters, Max reflected on the day's whirlwind of events. Lying back on his bed, he stared at the ornate ceiling, his mind filled with thoughts of diplomatic strategies and the unexpected twist his life had taken. In the quiet of the night, he realized that marrying Zelda might not just be a duty to his planet, but could also be the beginning of something profoundly life-changing. As sleep finally claimed him, His last thoughts were of hope and curiosity about what the future with Zelda might bring, both for their worlds and for themselves. The morning after their wedding found Max waking to the unfamiliar sounds of Zor 9's early risers, the distant hum of hover vehicles, and the soft chirps of the local avifauna echoing through the partially opened window. He lay for a moment collecting his thoughts, the previous night's conversations with Zelda replaying in his mind. They had connected on more levels than he had anticipated, and the thought comforted him as he faced the day ahead. Today was significant. It marked his formal introduction to the Zoran Council, and by extension to the citizens of Zor 9 who would be watching the broadcast. Max dressed in the ceremonial uniform provided to him, which, though less garish than the wedding attire, still bore the bright, vibrant colors of Zoran fashion. Zelda joined him for breakfast in their dining chamber, looking every bit the regal figure in her flowing robes that shimmered with a subtle pattern reminiscent of the night sky. Her calm demeanor belied the importance of the upcoming event, and Max found her composure reassuring. As we discussed, just be yourself, Max. The council respects strength and sincerity, Zelda advised as they shared a meal of local fruits and a surprisingly palatable porridge-like dish. Max nodded, savoring a bite of the sweet, tangy fruit. I've dealt with tough audiences before, but I admit this feels different. I'm not just representing myself or even just Earth. It feels like there's more at stake. There is, Zelda agreed, her eyes meeting his with an intensity that underscored her words. But I believe in you. Our people are curious about Earth. Your honesty will be refreshing to them. After breakfast, they proceeded to the council chamber, a grand hall lined with towering pillars and walls, adorned with intricate murals depicting Zoran history. The council members, all adorned in the traditional garb of their respective regions, were already assembled. Their multifaceted eyes turned to watch as Max and Zelda entered, hand in hand, a united front against the sea of scrutiny. High Counselor Zix, who presided over the assembly, gestured for them to take their places at the center of the chamber. The air was thick with anticipation, and Max could feel the weight of countless gazes upon him. Esteemed members of the council, citizens of Zor 9, Zix began, his voice booming through the chamber and broadcast to the public. Today, we stand witness to a new chapter in our history. We welcome Max Stellar of Earth, who has joined us through union with Princess Zelda. This alliance marks the beginning of a new era of peace and cooperation between our worlds. Max stepped forward, clearing his throat slightly. The chamber was silent, waiting for his words. Thank you, High Counselor Zix, members of the council, and all citizens of Zor 9, Max began, his voice steady. I am honored to stand before you, not just as a diplomat from Earth, but as someone who has been welcomed into your world with kindness and openness. I believe in the strength of our newly formed bond, and am committed to learning about your rich culture and contributing to our shared future. The response was measured. Several council members nodded, their expressions inscrutable. Max continued, discussing his hopes for cultural exchanges, educational initiatives, and technological collaboration. Zelda stood by his side, her presence a silent pillar of support. When the session concluded, the couple was swarmed by various officials and citizens, eager to engage. Zelda's fluency in navigating these interactions helped Max immensely, guiding the conversations and facilitating introductions. Later, as they retreated to the privacy of their quarters, Zelda let out a relieved sigh. You did wonderfully, Max. I could see many of the council members were impressed, and that's no small feat. Max chuckled, collapsing into a chair. It felt like walking through a minefield blindfolded, but I think we made a good impression. We did, Zelda confirmed, joining him with a soft smile. And it's just the beginning. There's much to do, but together I believe we can face any challenge. As they discussed their plans for the future, Max felt a burgeoning sense of purpose. With Zelda by his side, he was beginning to envision a life on Zor 9, not just as a duty, but as a genuine opportunity for growth and connection. Together, they would navigate the complexities of interstellar diplomacy and maybe, just maybe, forge a path of lasting peace between their worlds. In the days that followed his formal introduction to the Zoran Council, Max immersed himself in the complexities of Zoran culture and politics. With Zelda's guidance, he began attending various council sessions, diplomatic training sessions designed specifically for him, and public events where he was slowly introduced as not just Zelda's consort, but as a representative of Earth. Max was particularly intrigued by the technology of Zor 9, which far surpassed anything on Earth. He spent hours with Zoran engineers and scientists, learning about their advancements in energy, space travel, and environmental control. These interactions not only broadened his understanding, but also sparked ideas for potential Earth-Zor 9 collaborations. One afternoon, as Max and Zelda were reviewing reports in their study, a message arrived from High Counselor Zix. It was an invitation to a summit that would involve several other planetary systems, a gathering intended to discuss regional security and trade. It was an excellent opportunity for Max to debut on the intergalactic stage, but the prospect was daunting. "Zelda, this is a big step," Max confessed as he handed her the digital missive. "I mean, representing Earth in a regional summit? It's more than I bargained for." Zelda read the message, her expression thoughtful. "It is a significant responsibility, but one I believe you are ready for, Max. You've gained considerable respect here, and your insights at this summit could be invaluable." The days leading up to the summit were a blur of preparation. Max dove into studying the political climates of the participating systems, their economic statuses, and their cultural peculiarities. Zelda arranged for a series of briefings with Zoran diplomats who specialized in interstellar relations, ensuring Max was as prepared as possible. When the day of the summit arrived, Max donned his diplomatic uniform, a blend of Earth style and Zoran elements, symbolizing his dual allegiance. The summit was held on a neutral space station orbiting Zor 9, a hub of diplomacy and trade. As they approached the summit hall, Max's nerves tightened. The hall was filled with representatives from various species and planets, each adorned in their unique ceremonial attire. The air buzzed with a multitude of languages, some translated through devices that emitted soft, computerized voices. Zelda squeezed Max's hand reassuringly as they made their way to their designated seats. "Just speak from the heart, and remember what we practiced," she whispered. The summit opened with speeches from prominent figures, discussing topics ranging from trade disputes to environmental concerns and security threats. When it was Max's turn to speak, he stood, his heart pounding in his chest. "Esteemed delegates," Max began, his voice carrying through the hall, "I stand before you as both a citizen of Earth and a member of the Zoran family. Today, I wish to discuss potential pathways towards not just coexistence, but mutual prosperity and security." Max's speech focused on collaboration over conflict, the sharing of technology and resources, and the establishment of a unified protocol for emergency responses across systems. He cited specific examples where cooperation had led to significant advancements and proposed a framework for a new interstellar alliance. As Max concluded, the room was silent for a moment before a round of applause broke out, much to his relief. Several delegates approached him afterward, expressing interest in his proposals and extending invitations for further discussions. Zelda, who had been watching proudly, joined him as the summit adjourned for a break. "You were exceptional, Max," she said, her eyes shining with pride. "You've not only represented Earth well, but you've also laid the groundwork for meaningful change." Max felt a surge of accomplishment, tempered with humility. It's just the beginning, isn't it? He asked, looking around at the gathering of diverse beings, all conversing and mingling. It is, Zelda agreed, her hand finding his once more. But it's a good beginning. Together we're making a difference, bridging worlds and building peace. As they left the summit hall, Max felt a newfound confidence in his role and his place beside Zelda. The challenges ahead were many, but with each other's support, they felt surmountable. Together, they were not just a diplomatic duo, but partners in a mission that spanned galaxies. The success of the summit had a profound effect on Max's role within the interstellar community and solidified his position as a respected diplomat on Zor 9. Encouraged by the positive reception of his proposals and the genuine interest from other systems, he became more involved in the intricate web of galactic diplomacy, with Zelda always by his side, guiding and supporting him. In the weeks that followed, Max and Zelda hosted several follow-up meetings, both on Zor 9 and via virtual platforms that connected them across the cosmos. These meetings were aimed at formalizing the alliance frameworks he had proposed, discussing technicalities, and setting up committees that included representatives from various planetary systems. One particular challenge they faced was integrating Earth more fully into this burgeoning alliance. Earth was technologically behind many of the participating systems, and Max was keen on ensuring that Earth could benefit from and contribute to the alliance without becoming dependent or losing its cultural identity. Zelda was instrumental in navigating these delicate negotiations. Her diplomatic acumen and deep understanding of both the stakes and the players involved proved invaluable. Together, they crafted proposals that emphasized sustainable development, cultural exchange, and technological education, which were well received. During this busy time, Max took a moment to reflect on the rapid changes in his life since arriving on Zor 9. He sat in the study he now shared with Zelda, looking out at the city lights, a tapestry of living energy beneath the starry sky. He thought about Earth, his family, and how distant his old life seemed now. Zelda entered the room, her presence a comforting constant in his new existence. "Penny for your thoughts?" Zelda asked, her voice pulling him from his reverie. Max smiled, turning to face her. "Just thinking about how much has changed. It's overwhelming, but in a good way. I never imagined I'd be here doing this with you." Zelda walked over, taking a seat beside him. "I feel the same. We've started something significant, Max. Not just for Zor 9 or Earth, but for all the systems willing to join us. It's bigger than us, isn't it?" "It is," Max agreed, his hand finding hers. "And sometimes that scares me. But I'm glad we're in this together." Their conversation drifted to the upcoming cultural exchange program they had initiated. The program was designed to allow beings from different planets to visit Earth and Zor 9, experiencing the cultures firsthand, which would help foster understanding and cooperation. Max was particularly excited about this project, as it would allow him to show parts of Earth to the galaxy, sharing the beauty of his home planet. As the program's launch date approached, Max and Zelda worked tirelessly to ensure its success. They arranged for exhibitions, tours, and interactive sessions that covered everything from Earth's natural wonders to Zoran technological marvels. Finally, the day of the first exchange arrived. A group from various allied planets landed on Zor 9, their curiosity and enthusiasm palpable. Max and Zelda, along with a team of diplomats and cultural ambassadors, welcomed the group. The visitors were taken on a tour of Zor 9's capital, which included visits to the Council Hall, the Technology Hub, and the Cultural Museum. Max watched the interactions, seeing the awe and interest in the visitors' eyes as they learned about Zoran society. He felt a surge of pride and hope. The exchange was not only about showing off technological or cultural achievements, it was about building bridges, understanding, and ultimately, peace. That evening, as they debriefed after the day's activities, Zelda looked at Max with a mixture of exhaustion and satisfaction. "Today was a good day," she said simply. "It was," Max agreed. "And there will be more like it. We're making a difference, Zelda, one day at a time." As they prepared for the next day, ready to introduce their visitors to even more aspects of Zoran and soon earthly cultures, Max felt grounded. Their journey together had started with uncertainty and a bit of fear. But now, standing beside Zelda, facing the future, he was confident they were on the right path. Together, they weren't just shaping their destinies, but were also part of a larger narrative, one of unity and shared futures. The cultural exchange program was blossoming into a robust conduit of knowledge and relationships between Earth, Zor-9, and the Allied systems. After the success of the initial visit to Zor-9, it was Earth's turn to host. Max was particularly excited about this phase. It was his opportunity to share the beauty and diversity of his home planet with the galaxy. In preparation, Max coordinated closely with Earth's leaders and cultural institutions to arrange a series of events and tours that would highlight Earth's unique contributions to the Alliance. He wanted to showcase Earth's rich history, its natural wonders, and its technological advancements, despite being less advanced than some of the other allied planets. As the day of the visit approached, Max felt a blend of pride and nervousness. The delegation from the Allied systems, including some Zoran officials and other extraterrestrial dignitaries, was due to arrive in a matter of days. He flew back to Earth ahead of Zelda, who was tying up some diplomatic ends on Zor-9 to oversee the final preparations. The program kicked off in New York City, where the delegation was introduced to Earth's cultural melting pot through guided tours, museum visits, and a series of lectures and performances at the United Nations headquarters. Max watched as the delegates absorbed the bustling cityscape, the historical landmarks, and the vibrant cultural tapestry with wide-eyed wonder. From New York, the group traveled to various other key locations around the globe: the Amazon rainforest, the Great Barrier Reef, the Sahara Desert, and the Himalayas. Each location was chosen to illustrate a different aspect of Earth's environmental and cultural richness. Max found himself explaining, interpreting, and often marveling alongside the delegates at the natural beauty and diversity of his planet. In the Amazon, biologists from various planets exchanged knowledge with Earth scientists, discussing biodiversity and conservation strategies. In the Great Barrier Reef, environmental engineers shared innovative techniques for coral preservation and water quality improvement. Throughout these tours, Max facilitated discussions on how Earth could contribute to and benefit from the Alliance, emphasizing sustainable development and ecological management as potential areas for collaboration and exchange. When the delegation reached the Himalayas, they spent a night at a high-altitude observatory, where astronomers from different worlds shared their knowledge of the cosmos. That night, under the star-lit sky, Max felt a profound connection between all present as they shared stories of their home planets and looked out into the universe. Zelda joined Max in Paris for the final leg of the tour, where a cultural gala was hosted at the Louvre. The event celebrated the artistic achievements of humanity with displays of art and artifacts from across Earth's history, alongside exhibits of alien art forms brought by the delegates. As Max and Zelda walked through the gala, observing the interactions between Earthlings and their galactic neighbors, they reflected on the journey they had embarked on together. They discussed the outcomes of the exchange program and planned future initiatives to further deepen the bonds between their worlds. "It's been an incredible journey, hasn't it?" Max said, his voice filled with a mix of wonder and contentment. "It truly has," Zelda replied, her hand squeezing his. "Seeing Earth through their eyes and through yours has deepened my appreciation for what we are striving to achieve." As the evening wound down, Max gave a speech to the assembly, thanking the delegates for their openness and willingness to engage with Earth. He spoke of the future, of a united galactic community that could face any challenge by drawing on the strengths of its diverse members. The delegation left Earth with new agreements in place, promising ongoing exchanges and collaborative projects. Max and Zelda watched as their friends from the stars departed, feeling a bittersweet mix of accomplishment and anticipation for what was to come. That night, as they looked up at the stars from a quiet spot along the Seine, Max felt a sense of infinite possibility. Together with Zelda, they had not only bridged worlds, but had also sown the seeds for a future where those worlds could thrive together. As they planned their return to Zor 9, they were already discussing the next steps for deepening and expanding the alliance they had worked so hard to build. Returning to Zor 9 after the successful cultural exchange on Earth, Max and Zelda were greeted with a palpable sense of momentum. Their work had sparked a new level of interest in Earth, seen as a vibrant, if not technologically nascent, member of the galactic community. This shift in perception was crucial not only for Earth's integration into the Alliance, but also for fostering a sense of equality among the disparate technological and cultural landscapes of the Alliance members. In the weeks that followed, Max took on the role of Earth's ambassador to Zor 9 more formally, working out of an office in the Council building, a symbol of Earth's growing influence and participation. Zelda continued her duties, but now also served as a bridge between Earth and Zoran policies, ensuring that both planets' interests were represented and respected. One of their first initiatives post-exchange was to set up an Intergalactic Cultural Center on Zor 9, a venue designed to promote ongoing cultural exchanges and educational programs. The center would house artifacts, art, and technology from across the Allied systems, providing a permanent space for learning and interaction. As they discussed the project in their shared office, Max looked over the blueprints and the list of contributors. This could really change how the galaxy sees us, he mused, pointing to the section designated for Earth exhibits. It's not just about sharing art and history, but also about demonstrating our potential as a collaborative partner. Zelda nodded, her eyes scanning the digital documents. And it's about showing that every culture, no matter how advanced or not by conventional standards, has value and something to teach. We're all part of this galaxy's tapestry. Their plans were ambitious. Alongside the Cultural Center, they initiated a series of workshops and seminars that would bring experts from various planets to Zor 9 to share knowledge and ideas ranging from environmental sustainability to technological innovation and governance. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Delegations from various planets contributed resources, experts, and artifacts to the center. The grand opening was set to coincide with the first Galactic Conference on Cultural and Technological Exchange, hosted by Max and Zelda on Zor 9. As the date approached, their days were filled with meetings, planning sessions, and public engagements. Max, in particular, found himself growing into his role as a diplomat and ambassador with each passing day, his confidence bolstered by the strong partnership he had with Zelda and the support of the Zoran government. The conference drew attendees from across the galaxy, a testament to the interest and excitement the Cultural Center had generated. Max delivered the opening speech, his voice resonating through the hall, filled with representatives from dozens of worlds. In this center and in this conference, Max said, we see the embodiment of our shared future, a future where no world is too small or too far to contribute, where our diversity is our strength, and where our shared challenges are met with unified resolve. The conference was a flurry of activity. Panels discussed the implications of shared technological platforms, environmental strategies were debated, and collaborative projects were formed. Earth, once seen as a peripheral member of the galactic community, was now at the forefront of these discussions, championed by Max's passionate advocacy and Zelda's diplomatic skills. Behind the scenes, Max and Zelda worked tirelessly, their partnership stronger than ever. They coordinated the conference's sessions, mediated discussions, and facilitated agreements that would have been unimaginable just a few years ago. As the conference closed, the couple stood together, watching as delegates exchanged farewells and promises to meet again. Zelda turned to Max, her expression one of pride and affection. "You've done incredible work, Max. We've done incredible work." Max smiled, his eyes reflecting a deep sense of satisfaction mixed with the anticipation of challenges yet to come. "We're changing the galaxy, Zelda, together." And as they walked back to their quarters, hand in hand, they discussed future initiatives. They talked about expanding the cultural exchange programs, about setting up a scholarship fund for students from less advanced planets, and about a new series of diplomatic missions they would undertake together. The impact of their work was only beginning to unfold, but as they looked at the stars from their balcony that evening, they knew they had already shifted the paradigms of galactic interaction. Together, they had not only brought worlds closer, but had also charted a course for a future where unity and diversity were not just ideals, but lived realities. As the seasons changed on Zor 9, the galaxy continued to feel the ripples of the cultural and technological renaissance that Max and Zelda had sparked. The Intergalactic Cultural Center had become a beacon of collaboration and unity, drawing visitors from distant systems eager to engage with the diverse offerings and participate in the ongoing dialogues that it facilitated. Max, now well established in his role as Earth's ambassador, and Zelda, recognized as a visionary diplomat, found themselves at the heart of a burgeoning new era of interstellar cooperation. Their commitment to fostering mutual understanding and respect among the various planetary systems had set a new standard for diplomacy. The work was demanding but deeply rewarding. Together, they navigated the complexities of intergalactic politics and cultural sensitivities, always striving to ensure that the voices of all planets, especially those less technologically advanced, were heard and valued. As they planned for the second anniversary of the Cultural Center, they decided to host a gala celebrating the achievements of the past years and to outline the future directions of their collaborative efforts. The event was to be held at the center, with a live broadcast across multiple systems, symbolizing the transparency and inclusiveness that had become the hallmark of their leadership. On the night of the gala, the center was aglow with lights and filled with the harmonious sounds of music from various worlds. Representatives from numerous planets mingled, sharing stories and laughter, a vivid illustration of the unity that Max and Zelda had envisioned. Standing together on the balcony overlooking the grand hall, Max took a moment to appreciate the scene before them. "Look at what we've built, Zelda," he said, his voice filled with wonder and a hint of disbelief. "It's more than I ever dreamed we could achieve." Zelda, looking every bit the leader she had become, smiled warmly at Max. "We built it together with a lot of help from our friends across the stars. It's a testament to what we can accomplish when we work together, respecting and learning from our differences." As they stepped into the spotlight to address the gathering, the crowd quieted, their attention turning to the couple who had become a symbol of hope and progress. "Ladies, gentlemen, and esteemed beings from across the galaxy," Max began, his voice clear and confident. "Tonight, we celebrate not just the past, but the future. The initiatives we've started here are only the beginning. We plan to expand our outreach, develop more inclusive technologies, and create deeper, more meaningful connections among all our planets." Zelda continued, "Our mission is to ensure that this alliance remains a space where every culture can thrive and contribute. We are setting up new educational programs, research initiatives, and peace missions to ensure that our alliance is not just about shared interests, but shared values and shared lives." The applause that followed was heartfelt and enthusiastic. The evening continued with performances, presentations, and collaborative pledges that underscored the commitment of all present to the shared vision Max and Zelda had championed. As the gala drew to a close, Max and Zelda stood once again on the balcony, watching as their guests departed, their faces alight with inspiration and camaraderie. They turned to each other, their hands clasped, a silent acknowledgement of the journey they had undertaken together. "We've started something that will last beyond our lifetimes," Max said, a reflective note in his voice. "Yes," Zelda agreed, her eyes bright with unshed tears of joy. "And we'll continue to build on it every day, for as long as we can." With their hearts full of hope and their minds buzzing with plans for the future, Max and Zelda looked out at the stars, a reminder of the vast, beautiful universe they were a part of, a universe that felt a little smaller, a little closer, a little more like home because of their efforts. Together, they had woven a tapestry of unity from threads of diversity, creating a legacy of peace and cooperation that would resonate across the galaxies for generations to come. And in this moment, they knew with certainty that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, with the same unyielding commitment and love that had brought them this far.